not actually the tech that's keeping people awake at night. It's the process of getting it in. Whether you're employee number 6 or employee number 206, you should have the same experience. The more people you bring on, the more chance you've got of rocking that, that status quo and keeping that together and keeping it solid. 5 years from now, that would be the absolute ultimate.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vince Holt, the host of Talent Hunters. Today, we've got the honor of having Jane Lockwood, the Chief Operations Officer with Daemon, located in London, England. Jane has been with Daemon for 10 years. Daemon is a technology consultancy that is focusing on the people. Welcome, Jane.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you. Let's start this out first, focusing on you yourself.
Yes.
What truly has got you to where you are with Daemon this far in your career?
So I've got a really interesting backstory even before I came to Daemon, to be honest with you. And actually, just to put some context in it, I'll talk about that for a few minutes. I'm actually, very strangely, a food scientist and a nutritionist by trade. That's what I did my degree in. And coming out of university, I went to one of the big retailers, food retailers in the UK, and spent a magnificent 7 years with them, having so much fun. And I was actually a buyer. I was buyer in their food area. I looked after, my first area was confectionery, which was unbelievable to be, a youth coming out of university and being told that you need to go and buy boxes of chocolates. And for any of our UK listeners, Percy Pigs, they'll know who I'm talking about now. It was just a dream come true. But I worked through various areas, and it was then given the ultimate accolade to look after the sandwiches side of the business, the coffee shop side of the business. So it was a really great career. But in parallel to this, I also met my husband at the same time, and we got to the stage where children were upon us. My husband was also an international traveller, and we kind of had that big, open, honest conversation about, okay, we can't both keep going at 100 miles an hour if we are really going to bring these children up in the way that we want to bring them up. So I subsequently took 10 years out, and I literally just raised the children, got 2 boys. As part of my children going to, growing up and going into school and joining nurseries and all that kind of thing, my eldest boy met a lovely young lad called Ollie on the doorstep, literally, of nursery. And again, to cut a very long story short, Ollie is now one of the founders of Daemon. It was his son. And so that's how I came to sort of meet Daemon, sort of a cacophony of crazy circumstances that just put those 2 boys on that step at that right time that led me to meet Steve, one of the founders. So been friends for a few years. I had a call, it was actually in 2015, it's just nearly 10 years in February, from Steve, and when I wasn't working, saying, okay, so we've got this really big recruitment campaign. We've got 250 CVs. Folks coming in for a couple of weeks to join in and help out. And I was like, yeah, absolutely fine. I can do that. And I subsequently find myself 10 years later still here. But the reason why, for giving you the backstory, is when I started at Daemon, we were, I think I was employee number 6 or 7 or something like that. And we are now, knocking on nearly 200 as a total community. So we've gone through an incredible growth curve through those 10 years. And it found me in a position where, being in a very young business, actually being able to have my fingers in many different pies, and to be able to experience the world of recruitment, to be experiencing a little bit of marketing, to experience operations, to experience what it is to, the HR and the personnel side of the business. And by default, what's happened is, as the business has grown, my role has grown. But then I found myself in a position where I couldn't look after all of that. So we brought somebody in to help with recruitment. So I have a fantastic head of recruitment now that I work with, and that became then a head of operations. So he works with me. And then I've got a really good head of people and a head of compliance and all of those kind of things. So that's why I find myself in this role now, because I seem to have grown as Daemon has grown. And it's been really fortunate that, that we've kind of, that old cliche about we've been on a journey together, we quite literally have. So I find myself in this position because Daemon has developed me and I've developed Daemon along the way. I think it's very much a mutually exclusive relationship between the two of us.
Fascinating story. I mean,
yeah, it's quite unusual.
Yeah, exactly. Starting in food and getting to where you are today. That's a great story. It really is.
Yeah.
So, Jane, let's talk a little bit about Daemon. What does Daemon do directly?
Insofar as?
Daemon's in business.
Okay.
What is their purpose?
Sure. So Daemon is as you touch on it, is an IT tech consultancy. And across the business, we have 3 practices. We are in software engineering, we are in cloud, and we're also in AI, ML, data. So sort of our 3 sort of core areas of the business in terms of what we do. And how we structure ourselves or how we work as an organization is we like to go in and establish really solid relationships with our clients. So we're not we're not like an agency where they will come in and buy time and expenses T&M model off us. What we do is we work with them to establish really good relationships, and we find they are long-term relationships. So we work with a number of high street retailers, very well-known brands, some of them global brands. And we find ourselves in a really fortunate position is that we go in and we establish these relationships with these people. We do great technical work for them, and invariably they don't want us to leave. That we'll get to the end of our agreed piece of work, and we'll say, right, bye-bye, we'll leave you. And they're like, no, you can't leave us. Come and help us over here. So it's a little bit more to it than that, but fundamentally that's kind of that's how the businesses have been built. And as I mentioned, some of our clients, I mean, our longest term client, which is a very well-known orange supermarket in the UK, which people will probably know just by my clue there. We've been with them now for over 17 years. We work in the Home Office, a part of the government, and we've been in there, I think, probably 5 or 6 years. So we've got really well-known brands that we've established really good relationships with. That kind of gets, in a nutshell, that's kind of what we are and how we do it.
So let's peel the onion back just a little bit. IT consultancy and the different venues, but what is it that your company wants to help an organization solve?
So I'm not a technical person by trade, as you can tell by my sort of varied background. The tech side of it is not my forte, but with Daemon, the key thing is there are a number of different things. Every time a client comes to us, they'll come with us with a different problem. And it's invariably the conversation, that'll be the opening conversation with our clients, is what's keeping you up at night? What's that big problem? So it can be a highly technical problem. It can often be, and invariably this is what we find, is, not actually the tech that's keeping people awake at night. It's the process of getting it in. Is the people that it's making having the right teams in place. It's making sure you've got the roadmap. It's making sure you've got the strategic plan. It's making sure you've got the the architectural processes to understand how you get from A to B. So invariably we find that the work that we do with the clients, the IT is almost the end game. It's actually the process that we go through, where we go through a discovery phase with them, and we'll agree, okay, in order to do X, we need to do Y. In order to do A, we need to do B. And we'll actually document that out for them. And then at the end, it's the delivery part. But it's actually all part of that process that the clients really like and really enjoy. And we've got some really good relationships where we've just been able to put almost a holistic view on what potentially could be something where somebody's sitting up in bed at night and scratching their head going, I don't know what to do about this, because they haven't followed the process through. So it works. The great thing is the clients keep coming back to us, and long may that continue.
And in that process of your relationship, you also help them find people for them. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. As a consultancy, I mean, we're not a recruiter and we're not an agency. So that, moving on what we were talking to before about the T&M, we're not, excuse the pun, bundle seats. We are more about the fact of, you've got this problem. In order to fix this problem, we need to do a number of things. We'll put a squad in, and invariably our squad of Daemon people will be sitting alongside the client's people. They might be sitting alongside some contractors because, you're always going to need specialisms in this industry. You're always going to get those people that have got those niche skills, and we will collectively put that team together, which we call that a movement. And those squads will come together. They'll work collectively with the client, and they will drive to the line. They will go through that process of delivering what it is that the client needs, which is, again, a really lovely way of doing it, because you create that really good team ethos. Nobody's sitting alone as a lone wolf. We find that people really enjoy coming to work for Daemon because it gives them something slightly different to what other companies might give them, which is great. And again, we're very fortunate that we've got people that have been with us for many years now, because they just like the way that Daemon do it.
So you had mentioned earlier, when you came on board, you were like employee number 6. Now there's over 200. You also, in your tenure there, the last 10 years, have experienced at least one major hiccup in business, meaning COVID.
COVID, yes.
And how did COVID affect your business?
So I say this, it sounds I'm being very smug here, but we were very lucky insofar as that our main business setup, our framework, the ways that we were working was fully supportive of going through a scenario like that. So you imagine in a consultancy, you've got a lot of people on multiple clients at any one time. So we have all the tech in place to have remote meetings. We have the structure in place as to ascertain as to when we all get together. As part of it being we were a disparate workforce, and therefore we manage that. So when a scenario like COVID comes in and everybody gets locked down, well, guess what? We were, as I say, very smugly, and I don't mean to be smug, but we were set up, and we were ready to go. So the irony as well for a company like ours, as you can imagine from a tech point of view, is there was a lot of the big retailers that were just, I'm sure it's the same in the States, but in the UK, we had a lot of panic buying, and where we were propping up a lot of these retailers, they were like, Daemon, don't go, help us. And we're very proud, again, to mention the orange one, that was the only retailer in the UK that didn't actually go down with all the panic buying, because it was our guys that were behind there firefighting, sorting things out. And the numbers of transactions that were going through on a daily basis were just eye-watering. It was like 3 or 4 times what their peaks are at Christmas. And our guys were the ones that were, as I say, propping it up, holding it up, making sure it was stable. And it was a really big thing for us, and something that we're very proud of, indeed, and really proud of to being part of that. So, coming back to your question, that COVID was just another opportunity. And unironically, we grew more in COVID than we had done at any other time, because we were busier than ever.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're working primarily remotely? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, yeah.
So growing in a 10-year period to 200 people, what hurdles are you having to overcome in attracting people to Daemon?
So this is a really interesting question, and a really interesting point, and one that is I feel quite passionate about. My ethos of Daemon, and I think it's the same of the founders, is that whether you're employee number 6 or employee number 206, you should have the same experience. So all about the culture, about how the business is run, what your values are, they are and will remain at the forefront of what Daemon is all about. And when people join the business, for example, here's an example of it, people will have a dedicated culture interview. And we will talk to those people, we'll ask them various questions, looking at what their approach is to, what our values are. We're all pragmatic, we're all progressive, we're all passionate, approachable, all of those kind of things. So those have and remain at the absolute forefront. And I think by having some of those really essential pillars in place that remain front and center as you recruit people, means that actually you're not, the business doesn't, yes, the business will change. With every person that joins the business, you'll tweak ever so slightly to allow their personality to join in. But fundamentally, those 5 principles, we've got North Stars, they are our guiding lights. They are what we are true to. And us as an exec team, we're not charged with just delivering revenue and margin. We're charged with making sure it's an amazing place to work. We're charged with making sure we're employer of choice. We're charged with making sure we're client-centric, we're growing sustainably, and we have a measurable societal impact. So, and if we fail on one, we fail on all five. Let's be clear. It's not just this is all about money. This is about how we create a great environment to work with our clients, for our clients to work with us, for our people to work with us, everything. We are just, it's a juggling act, as you can imagine. At sometimes you're like one of the North Stars will take priority over the other. But invariably, those values sit across all of them. Those 5 values that we have, and that just keeps us true. So that's a very long answer to your very short question, but I think just being mindful of setting out those building blocks and keeping those front and center will mean that we remain that same company that the founders wanted to build all those years ago.
So do you cover all of Europe? Do you cover the globe? Where is your marketplace?
So our marketplace is interestingly still in the UK.
Okay.
And having done some sort of research over the last couple of years, it remains in the UK. There's still a huge lot of stuff to do in the IT space. As you know, it seems to go. It's almost cyclical insofar as that people have spent the last sort of 5 or 10 years moving away from their data legacy systems and putting them up in the cloud. And guess what? People are going, oh, I think I want to take it out the cloud now and put it back on the ground because that's working out too expensive. So there's always going to be that demand. I mean, everybody knows about AI and the impact it's having on everybody's lives now. We're front and center at that. And especially we've got AI, ML and data as well for all those I always get this acronym wrong, AI, ML situations. There's a big data lake. There's a big opportunity. There's all of that. So what do people do with all that data that they're collecting? What's feasible? That's where we'll step in and we can help in things like that. So in terms of where we are positioned, we find ourselves, from an industry point of view, yes, there's lots of new and exciting stuff. But again, there's some basic fundamentals that run through any business like this.
So you've explained a little bit about what your organization tries to offer people that come on board. Mm-hmm. But let's take this back to square one. You identify we have a need in our company.
Sure.
What's step one? How do you go out and find today that talent?
So we are, I say we're really lucky because our recruitment team are second to none. And I would say that, wouldn't I? But they are absolutely brilliant. Bless them. They are. We're very lucky. They very much so. So our head of recruitment will very much hold the reins. He'll hold the levers in terms of what we want. He works really closely with finance. He works really closely with myself, and he works really closely with our growth teams. And he's already looking, like us, at least sort of 6 or 12 months down the line. On top of that, he's also looking at the trends. What's going on in the industry? What's the new buzz? What's the new technologies? What's the new stacks, the full stacks that people are looking into? He's got his eye down the road. So invariably, if we turn around to him and say, right, we need X, Y, and Z, he's like, I know, I'm already on that. I've already seen that. Don't worry, we've got this ready to go. So we're very fortunate to have some really talented people in the right space that are looking down the road for us. So it's not often that we get to shock them. It's very rarely that we get to shock them. But what they will do is they've got I mentioned before about our interview process. They've got some great networks. They've got some great tools that they use. That they invariably have got a good reputation as well. I think Daemon's got a good reputation that if people see us and hear it's a Daemon thing, they're like, oh, that's interesting. I'll have a look at this now. So I'm not going to give away trade secrets, but they've got very good ways of attracting the right people. And then again, I'll allude to the fact of our interview process. Our interview process is quite simple, insofar as that when people come into the business, they'll have a screening call initially with one of our recruitment team. They will then have a technical interview where we'll talk to them about the skills needed for the job and their skills. We'll then have a culture interview, as I've alluded to before. And then at the end of that, everybody will meet either one of the founders or the exec. So there's a sort of a 4-stage process on what that does. And we are really keen that people get a really good view into what Daemon looks like as well as us assessing them along the way. So sometimes when people get to the interview, and I actually interviewed somebody this morning, and he said to me, I did the technical interview, and on face value, it seemed really simple. But he said, I then sat down with this, it was a very senior person in Daemon, one of our senior consultants, and he said, it was really interesting the way that he was talking to me about how I came to the answers. So it wasn't a fact about him getting 10 out of 10 in his test. It was more about the fact of how did he get to each of his answers? What's the process he's gone through? What's his thoughts? What's he used? What's he's considered? So it feels a little bit like a school exam. It's not supposed to. It's more about, okay, so if the way that he works out a problem or solves a problem aligns to how we do business with our clients, then that's the big picture, that person that's coming through the process. But the other interesting thing about doing that is the amount of people that get to the sort of day one at Daemon, they stand on the doorstep and they're like, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that interview and I enjoyed meeting that person. Let's see if what Daemon, is Daemon really like what I've experienced across these 4 interviews? And we're very fortunate that there's a number of employees over the years that have put things like LinkedIn posts up or put something up internally that just said, I thought it was too good to be true. But it is true. It is true. It was almost like a realization that we were just genuine. We were just honest. We give people the warts and all. We give everybody the opportunity. As I said, the guy this morning was asking us some quite pokey questions as an exec team. And it's like, absolutely get it all out on the table. And that allows him to make an informed decision about whether he wants to join Daemon and us to make an informed decision about whether he's the right fit. And I think that, to me, that's how it works.
Now, heading up operations, you obviously oversee, I understand you've got a recruiting team in there. You oversee the recruiting and the process and so forth. But with today's technology, are you guys, is Daemon relying on technology to identify potential candidates to bring in? Or is there something else so you're not wasting time that you value in that first step of, I want to interview this person?
There are tools that we use. And I think, and that's not anything other than, making sure we've got that hopper that catches the right people for us. If you do that manually, that's going to take you an awful lot of time. If you apply some of these tools and you apply them correctly, it can set that hopper up correctly and making sure you're getting the right people in the hopper at that stage, then that's when it becomes much more manual for us at Daemon. And that's what I was saying about we go through these 4 interviews for all the right reasons. We wouldn't want to be in a situation where we are at the moment, and there may be tech options in the future. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying no, but at the moment, that's how we do it. And it works really well for us. So yes, we do rely on tech, but for me, it's still, and it remains as culture is such a key part of Daemon. You want to make sure that person that's joining you feels part of the organization's got that same mindset, got those values. At the moment, I don't think the tech would quite do that for us. That's not to say it won't in the future, but there still needs to be that human interaction.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, frankly, with the way AI and all these other, tech is just growing so fast. And the part that, look, I started in the recruiting industry when the first threat was everybody's going to have a fax machine and recruiters aren't going to be existing anymore.
Yeah.
And then it came to the computers and it's gone on. Now, what I've found is candidates don't write their own resumes. And we're still dealing with hiring authorities that want to see a resume first. And we explain to people, look, most people are not writing their own resume. Somebody doesn't even know about this person is writing a resume, and don't be misled by what you see in black and white. It's like a job description. You put a job description in and you said it best. You get an opportunity to interview, and you're not hiring somebody that checks off every line on the job description. You're hiring somebody that can solve a problem you might have today and culturally fits into your organization.
Yeah. Sounds simple when you lay it out like that.
Exactly. and yet today both executives and executive recruitment people are relying on AI technology instead of talking to a recruiter to screen this person so I don't have to talk to 25 people. I can talk to 5. Now, you may have a great team in place, okay? But wouldn't it be nice to have that screened out first? Do you use recruiters?
No, we don't. We literally are our in-house team. And we made a conscious decision about 7 or 8 years ago because we were, again, I sound like a broken record, but because those cultural values were so important to us, because we had been in a position where we had used some external companies and they just didn't get it. They just didn't understand it. There's like, well, this person ticks all these things that you're asking for from a job description. Why are they not a good fit? And it was almost like a bit of an epiphany moment that says, if we really want people of a really high caliber and to fit in nicely with everybody else, we need to bring it in-house. So that was why we made that decision that instead of investing in, multiple suppliers across this space, we would actually bring a team in and they know the process inside out and back to front. And interestingly, when we add to that team, we almost build in a window of getting them to really understand what it is that we're looking for, because it's not going to come overnight, because it is slightly different to what your standard recruiter will do. So we build them in an additional 6-month window to say that's how long it's going to get them to get it. And suddenly you'll see them get, almost like the mist clears and they go, I've got it. I've got it now. I get it. So again, coming back to your point about, tools are not going to do that. And I don't think an external recruiter would be able to do that for us. And therefore it suits us to have a team in place that get that thing that's quite unique to us. I'm sure it's unique to other organizations. So, we're not standalone in that point of view, but because we take these things so, they're so important to us and we see them as being sort of a lifeline or a vein that runs through everyone in Daemon, we think they're important, therefore we invest in them. And we invest in them in making sure that we've got the recruiters that are looking out for those things.
That's wonderful. So let's bring it all right back to Jane.
Okay.
10 years, really, this organization has made a huge impact in growth. It has to be exciting to be a part of that growth and truly be a key figure in that growth. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
It's an interesting question. I would hope I would be in the same Daemon that I feel now, but on a larger scale. I think that would sum it up nicely. So again, but it's funny because the amount of times that people have asked me over the years, what's the biggest thing that keeps you awake at night? That I said that, didn't I? But that's what we say to our clients, is making sure that we establish that culture. So if I can keep that, if I'm in 5 years from now and Daemon is 3 or 4 times the size that it is, and we've got, multiple hundreds of people, but it's still a great place to work and people still enjoy coming to work and people still will write on Glassdoor, this place is brilliant, and they've got the good package around them and they've got the flexible working conditions. To me, I would love to be at 5 years to be sitting in this chair and know that I've achieved that or managed to maintain it. Because as I said to you, with the more people you bring on, the more chance you've got of rocking that, that status quo and keeping that together and keeping it solid. For me, that would 5 years from now, that would be the absolute ultimate.
So now I'm going to squeeze it a little more focused on you.
Okay.
Obviously, growing at the pace you guys have grown at, it's occupying a lot of your time.
Of course.
What does Jane Lockwood do once you turn the light off on business to clear your head?
So here's an interesting thing. I do it the other way around. And everybody who knows me knows I'm a little bit crazy like this. I get up every morning and I walk. My mission is to walk 10,000 steps before 8 a.m. That's how I start every day. And by doing that, I've built up all of yesterday's conundrums, all of yesterday's scenarios, everything that I need to think of. I park overnight and I walk every morning. And they'll know when I'm back from my walk because I'll start messaging everybody going, that thing we talked about yesterday, I worked it out. I found the solution. So that's how I do it. That's how I always do it. And they always laugh at me. They're always like, you've got your 10,000. Yeah, fine. I've got 12,000. And now it's 9 o'clock. So yes, I do it in reverse to everybody else. I park everything and I chew it over when I walk. And I've got my music in my ears. I'm on my own. It can be raining. It can be snowing. It can be hot. I am out there with my walking boots on, just sorting out the world in my own head.
And yet I understand what you're saying, and I love the process.
Really?
But that's how you're kicking off the day.
That's how I'm kicking off the day. Exactly that. So by the time I get to my desk, I'm already all fired up. I'm ready to go. There's no, she's got to have her first coffee. That's why I said that people can tell when I get back from my walk because the messages will go out. They're like, oh, she's back.
And I love that. I love that. I truly do. I love the working out the process of what I'm going to accomplish today. It's planning for the day. It's making things happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But what I want to get back to, because clearly you just defined, you start your day before 8 o'clock, clearly.
Yes.
When it comes in whether you turn the lights off of work at 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock, doesn't make any difference. What do you do to cleanse your brain of that day?
I am a big writer. So I write down everything. And by that physical act of writing an item down, I remove it from my head.
Beautiful.
Because ironically, I am the world's worst sleeper. And I always have been. I never slept very well. I then had a baby who's now nearly 18, who kept me awake for many years. And it was like, how do I cope with that? And actually, it's now my way of coping was to make sure that I wasn't lying in bed thinking about this and that and this and that. And what I did was start to write things down. And now it really helps me in work, in life, in just dealing with stuff. And we're all, we all can get anxious at times. We can all wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and worry about X, Y, and Z. The physical act of writing it down for me takes it out of my head.
That's beautiful. What a great
really solution.
That really is.
I can show you, look, here's my list here. Look, that's me always scribbling down.
What a great release, though. I mean, it cleanses the brain.
Yes, 100%.
And you've got it to reference later on.
Yeah.
Which allows you to cleanse the brain. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, Jean, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on this podcast. I really am.
Thank you for having me.
Been a pleasure. What an education. And I've taken some notes also from the standpoint of this writing things down at the end of the day to cleanse the brain. I like that idea.
Yeah, and then kicking the brain off in the morning. It's like getting back, off you go.
and I've done that. Most people that know me rather intimately know I don't sleep either. If I get 4 hours of sleep, that's a lot. I start probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and just start doing things to get into the day.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm retired.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. Yeah. But I want to thank you again for being on here and really sharing your life and Daemon's life.
Thank you for saying.